On April 2nd, 2026, the world did not end. But for millions of people, it sure felt like it was getting close. Let's get right into it, because what happened in just 24 hours is a stunning and frankly a terrifying look at the raw power of our planet.
It all began with this number, 7.4. At 6:48 in the morning, local time, the planet recorded a seismic event of that magnitude. It was a massive, violent jolt deep under the ocean, a number that would very quickly get a name, a location, and a human cost.
And just like that, the cost became tragically real. Before most of the world was even brewing its morning coffee, this abstract number turned into the brutal reality of loss. One life, just gone, crushed by the sheer force of the earth.
So, where did this happen? The epicenter was in the Molucca Sea, about 120 kilometers off the coast of Ternate, an island in Indonesia. This thing was so powerful, it triggered an immediate tsunami warning for not just Indonesia, but the Philippines and Malaysia too.
Let's just break down the raw facts here. The quake itself was pretty shallow, only 35 kilometers deep. And that's absolutely crucial, because a shallower quake means the shaking on the surface is way more intense, way more violent. Now, the tsunami waves weren't catastrophic, thankfully, but they were real, up to 2.5 feet high. And the ground just kept moving. 11 aftershocks rattled a population already completely on edge.
On the ground, this wasn't about geology or numbers anymore. It was about pure, primal fear. Can you just imagine that level of panic? Fleeing your home mid-shower, running into the street with crowds of terrified people, all awakened by the ground literally trying to tear itself apart beneath you?
But here's the thing. The shaking in Indonesia, that wasn't an isolated event. It turns out it was just the opening act in a day of global turmoil. It was like the entire planet woke up on the wrong side of the bed.
You see, all of this happened along the Pacific Ring of Fire, that massive horseshoe-shaped belt where most of the world's earthquakes and volcanoes go off. And on this day, as that ring shuddered, the instability started to spread. The timeline is just wow. First, you have the 7.4 monster in Indonesia. Then, a pretty significant 5.2 quake hits China's Xinjiang region. And then, at 1:41 a.m. Pacific time, it hits home. A 4.9 quake shakes millions of people awake in California's Bay Area. We're talking 3 different continents, all shaking on the very same day. But that seismic activity, believe it or not, it wasn't even the whole story. At the exact same time, on the complete other side of the United States, a different kind of disaster was unfolding. Not with a sudden jolt, but with a relentless rising tide.
That's the fire chief up in Brockport, New York, trying to describe a deluge that just completely overwhelmed his town. So think about this. While the West Coast was getting rattled by an earthquake, the East Coast was getting absolutely swamped by historic rain and flash floods.
And the scale of this was just huge. In the Rochester area, it was a battle fought basement by basement. Firefighters pumped 2,000 gallons of water out of just one home. And a little to the west, in northeast Ohio, it wasn't just rain. We're talking 70-mile-per-hour winds and floods so bad they had to close an entire lake. 2 totally different weather systems, creating chaos right in the American heartland.
Because that's what this is all really about, isn't it? Behind every magnitude number, behind every inch of rainfall, there are people. People whose lives are suddenly, violently turned upside down by forces they have absolutely no control over.
Just stop and think about that. Your home, your safe space, is suddenly attacking you from the inside out. Water coming up through the shower drain, from under the toilet. It's this slow, sickening invasion that you are totally powerless to stop. And then you have the complete opposite experience. Not a slow creep, but an instant, violent assault. One moment you're fast asleep, and the next, the very walls of your house are threatening to collapse on top of you.
Now, what's so fascinating is, whether you're an American homeowner hearing a weird noise from your basement or an Indonesian resident being shaken awake, the core experience is identical. It's sudden chaos, total confusion, and this profound feeling of being completely helpless. It's the universal human response when nature decides to remind us who's really in charge.
Okay, so why are we looking at all of this together? A flood in New York, a quake in California, another one in Indonesia? I mean, what's the connection? This right here is where it gets really important.
So are these just random, unlucky events that all happen to fall on the same day? Or are they part of a much bigger story about the world we're all living in right now? Well, here's the answer. It almost doesn't matter if they are geologically connected or not. The fact that they happened at the same time is a powerful and, frankly, an urgent reminder about how fragile all of our systems really are.
When you boil it all down, what April 2nd, 2026 really showed us is that our vulnerabilities aren't just in faraway earthquake zones or in local floodplains. They're everywhere. In one day, emergency services were tested in Indonesia, China, Ohio, New York, and California, all at once. It proves that being prepared isn't something for other people to worry about. It's a fundamental requirement for living in the modern world.
And that brings this whole question right back home, because these aren't just distant headlines you can scroll past. The planet's fury is knocking, and it's knocking on our door.
You know, that 4.9 quake, it wasn't the big one, but it was definitely strong enough to be felt across the entire San Francisco Bay Area. For millions of Americans, it was a jarring physical reminder that they live on an active fault line, and that the big one is always a possibility.
And the threat isn't over, not by a long shot. According to the U.S. Geological Survey, there is a greater than 60% chance of another aftershock big enough to be felt hitting that exact same area within a week. That's not some historical probability, okay? That is an active, ongoing forecast. The ground there is still live.
So, it all comes down to this, doesn't it? We've seen what one single day can look like on our volatile planet. We know the threats are real, both thousands of miles away and right in our own backyards. So the only real question left is the personal one. When, and it is when, not if, it happens to you, what's your plan?